And we're live. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are. Welcome to another YouTube Live with me, Jim Hustwit. Today's topic of conversation is drawing a distinction between working on your business versus working for your business. I think this is a critical distinction to make if you want to write music or be creative full time, because I think this is the difference between it being a hobby and with it being earning a living, or at least earning some money from it. So I'm very, very keen to get everyone else's sort of thoughts on this. So please do get involved in the chat or in the comments. Before I do, if you're new to the channel, welcome. It's the channel dedicated to helping music makers monetize their music. I tend to look at writing, composing, producing, mixing, but also things like this, the sort of business side of being a freelance producer or composer, and as well sometimes mental health, well-being. So if that sounds of value, then please do smash that subscribe button and ring my bell really hard, so the next time I post, you're the first to find out. So yeah, let's dive into this subject. So this is a kind of a concept which was brought to my attention by, there's a podcast called the Six Figure Home Studio. And essentially those guys were talking about, they brought about this distinction, but I never kind of properly thought about it in that sense. And this was only kind of last year, or year before. But if you are working for your business, you are, as you said, let's say, I take me as the example. If I'm working for my business, I'm writing music, I'm producing music, I'm mixing music. Music is my output. That's what Larp music does, whether it's production music or stuff for TV and film, whatever. That's my output. So me writing and working on music is me working for my business. However, working on my business is doing things like marketing, like networking, like social media. There, I said it. I hate it, but I said it. But even things like sort of looking at ways to sort of improve efficiency and productivity. Now, let me sort of draw the analogy of someone who likes cooking, so they open up a cafe and they spend all their time in the kitchen making lots of food, which is great. But if there's no one there to consume the food, they're just in a kitchen making food. They need clients or customers in order for that to be a viable business. And similarly, as a creative, if we're going to do this professionally, we can sit in our studios making loads and loads of music, but if we don't have clients or customers who are demanding that music and paying for it, it is really just a hobby rather than something that earns as a living. Okay, so I think drawing that distinction is like, if you spend all the time working for your business, but there's no one there to pay you for your services, then it is simply just a hobby. So working on your business, you were talking things like marketing. Now, my kind of journey into music is quite unconventional, because I never studied sort of composition, or I went to university and studied business and German, and I worked for 10 years in industry, working for mobile ringtone companies like the Crazy Frog and other businesses. So it was very much marketing, and I quit everything to do music full time. So I came at it from a slightly different angle, in that I'd had 10 years working in industry, and so therefore had a good understanding of running a business and the different elements of running a business. And so I think was able to apply that to what I was doing to make music a sort of viable career path for myself. It's not always been plain sailing. It's been difficult. It's been an uphill struggle at times, but it's worked out, and I'm here 10 years later still making music for a living, which is amazing, and I'm massively grateful for every single day of my life. But I think, I don't know, when people come out of school, whether if you study music at school, whether you ever sort of truly learn about the fact that you are going to be freelance and you are going to be running a business, and in order to run a business, you need to find customers and clients. So that's the distinction between working on your business and working for your business. So working on your business is, how do you market yourself? You can write the best music in the world, but how do you get that in front of someone? How do you make sure that people know what you're doing and sort of go, wow, that's great, so the next time that they want music, they come to you? And that's about, that's the marketing side of things. So and I sort of put social media in there because I suppose social media could be deemed as part of the marketing. And I think it probably is. Social media platforms are an amazing way to put your work out there for people to see. I've always wondered how, certainly when it comes to sort of composing a short film or something like that, I've always wondered whether or not that anyone would ever hire someone off the back of seeing a social media profile. I would tend to doubt that's the case. But I certainly know that I've had potential clients in terms of artist production. So I've spent a bit of time producing artists, which I don't tend to do so much anymore. But I know that I had clients that approached me through Instagram, for example, for that. So that would be a marketing channel, LinkedIn, things like that. Networking, obviously, one of the questions that I always get asked by people who sort of apply for the internship or sort of do the Sync Accelerator is about how do you break into the business? What's the sort of really important thing? And networking is so crucial. Obviously, during the middle of a global pandemic, not the easiest thing to do unless it's on Zoom. But actually going out and meeting people, it's much easier. It's very difficult to forge a relationship with someone online. Whereas actually, if you can meet them face to face, talk to them, and actually communicate with them in the same room, then that's a much better way to sort of build any kind of relationship, and certainly a precursor to then sending them examples of your work. So networking, I would class as part of that. But then also things like, so one thing that they mention in the I don't know if anybody's ever read the 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. That's an incredible book, and I highly recommend that to anyone who's freelance, because it basically alludes to how do you sort of automate processes and systems and improve your efficiency versus effectiveness. So to improve your effectiveness so that you spend as little time as possible working. It's very tricky to apply that concept to being a creative, because it's not like you can outsource all your work, although Hans Zimmer does. Oh, he didn't, did he? Oh, he did. Obviously, it gets to a point with if you've got so much work on you, you'll have to look at sort of bringing together a team or outsourcing. But at the same time, it's very difficult to sort of go, oh, this creative process will only take me X amount of time, and you can't necessarily farm it out. So, but however, within processes within running a business, there are some really, really good insights in that, such as just things as simple as like not being on your email all the time, because answering emails or replying to emails is an amazing way to fill a day with stuff that doesn't really have any doesn't have any effect on your business. It's not productive. But the guys on the Six Figure Home Studio podcast talks about things like within the realm of setting up templates, so that when you sit down to work, you're not having to go through your sample libraries and pull things in, etc., etc. Now, we've talked about this in the ASX Writers Circle, and I think, if memory serves, most people were kind of against that because that restricts you creatively. However, what I'm finding at the moment, working on a lot of trailer music, is that with the trailer music, if I had a template with all of my sample libraries loaded up, not necessarily switched on, but loaded up, I wonder whether that would actually save me a lot of time by being able to go in and switch them on. But I'm really keen to sort of hear other people's thoughts on this, because as I say, it's only a distinction which has occurred to me in the last couple of years, and I have to say honestly, I probably as a composer or producer, you just want to be making music. You don't want to have to be doing all the sort of administrative stuff associated with being a composer producer. But unfortunately, until you get to a point whereby you can hire someone to do that for you, it is probably a necessary evil, and I kind of feel it's pretty critical to success. So if you have got any thoughts on this, then please let me know in the chat or in the comments, because I would be very interested to hear other people's take on this. Ollie Barton's got something to say. What's the crazy frog like? But he's a right diva in the studio. He's a prick, to be honest with you. We don't talk about the crazy frog. Well, we can talk about the crazy frog. I often joke that because I was part of the team that helped get the crazy frog to #1 in the UK back in 2005. And so I often joke that by now that was before I started doing music full time. But now me doing music full time, I'm kind of making reparations for crimes against music. However, flip side of that is that the crazy frog getting to #1 did stop Coldplay getting to #1. So on the other hand, we were heroes. Brad Couture, what are you saying? A mantra I've always stuck to has been, if no one knows who you are, you can't do business with them. Seems to fit. Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing, isn't it? You can make the best music in the world, but it's like, how do people know about you? How do people hear it? How do they hear your music, above? And I suppose this is a challenge faced today, because obviously the digital world means that everyone can make music, which is incredible, but it just means that there's even more music out there. So it's like, how do you stand out from the crowd? How do you make sure that people are hearing your music, when there's millions of other tracks out there? So people need to know who you are, and if now people know you, Brad Couture. But yeah, thanks, mate. Holly Barton, he's saying, good businessmen to live by, because so many people are so wrapped up in artistry that they think it's part of their role to actually promote themselves. Yes, well, I think this is very much the challenge, isn't it? When you are making music for a living, whether that's as an artist or as a producer or as a composer, you are kind of treading that fine line between art and commerce. And it's a difficult line to tread. Certainly, making music for a living has very much changed my relationship with music, I think, in an entirely positive way. But, you know, music used to be a hobby and something relaxing for me. Whereas now when I get home, I don't want to hear any music. I don't want to hear anything. But yeah, it's a fine line to tread. And I often say this to people who are interested in doing production music. If you have experience as an artist and, you know, creating art in its purest form, if you're doing production music or you're writing to brief or writing for TV, whilst you want to bring some of your artistry to the table, because hopefully that's what people are paying for you for, you have to leave your ego at the door, because ultimately it's somebody is paying for you for a service. And it's, if you kind of like refuse to give them what they want, that's a bit like a painter decorator coming around to your house to paint your living room and insisting that they use the color that they think works best in your living room. It's like, whoa, who are you? So yeah, always important. So that's my air conditioning. What's Flair's saying? People sell to people. It's all about relationships, and you can't do that with your head in the sand. Very true, mate. You've got to get out there. But I think it's also, you know, worth noting that as composers and producers and mix engineers, we do tend to spend a lot of time in isolation. You know, if ever, Bryce Kagan raised this in one of the previous YouTubes, is that, you know, as composers and producers, we were probably better prepared for a pandemic than anyone else, because we generally live a fairly isolated life, and it's all the more important to sort of get out there and create those relationships, because even relationships beyond just, oh, you want to employ me to do music, relationships with other writers, with musicians, with singers, whoever those are, because again, something I mentioned whenever it was, the days blur into one, but yeah, about you know, sort of creating an original sound, is collaborating with other people is an amazing way to broaden your horizons and learn things and bring additional elements to your music that might not otherwise be there. So relationships, both, you know, customer purchaser relationship, or just purely as a sort of you know, collaborative, is really important. Social media marketing would be the first I'd hire out personally. Never feels authentic to me to self-promote to this day. Yeah, I feel you, Brad. I was going to say love-hate relationship with social media. I think it's more of a hate-hate relationship with social media. And I think it's very easy to confuse working on social media with sort of being productive. And what's difficult is that there's so many people out there telling you that social media is like so important. You know, generally those people either work for Facebook or their businesses models revolve around social media. So, you know, there are people on YouTube who will tell you that social media is the most important thing you could ever do, when in actual fact, if it's not your primary job, i.e., if you're a musician, music is the most important thing. But having said that, you know, social media can be an element of your marketing mix in order to put stuff out there. And it is hard to self-promote, but I like to draw this distinction. There's self-promotion, and there's also just enthusiastically sharing what you do, which you could argue is one and the same thing. But I think by kind of framing it slightly differently, it makes it slightly easier to do. So for me to enthusiastically share my music with the world, it would be acceptable. Whereas, you know, like self-promotion on social media is like, oh, so it's a difficult one to do. Promoting yourself is very difficult to do, and God knows I've wrestled with it a lot. But you know, if anybody's familiar with Gary Vaynerchuk, I kind of agree with him on this, is that, you know, back in the day, before the dawn of the interweb, if you wanted to promote something, you had to go to a newspaper and pay to have a classified ad. Today, with social media, you have the ability to, it's free advertising. You can put stuff out there on the internet for people to consume for free, and, you know, advertise yourself and your services for free. Now, obviously, being heard above the noise of all the other people is the tricky part. But yeah, Bryce Kagan is saying, I'm going to frame all of these comments as motivational art. Yeah, you bloody should, mate. Absolutely. Well, it's funny because I'm just doing a load of Instagram. Talking of social media, I'm doing a load of Instagram posts at the moment, and basically for the past 2 years or so, whenever I've read a motivational quote or not an inspirational quote from someone, I've jotted it down, and I decided to jump on the sort of Instagram bandwagon of putting these motivational quotes out on Instagram. But I'm going to do it because I honestly, these quotes have all, like, when I've read them, they've made me go, whoa. So it's great to know that this is having exactly the same impact on you, Bryce, as well. Because I don't think I'm nicking any of these from anyone. Oh, we've had that one from Brad already. Duddy Brown's just showing some love. Big love to you. Back to you, Duddy Brown. So yeah, so there you go. I think I'm out of ideas now. But yeah, for anybody who is watching, because as I say, I have a lot of contact with people who are kind of at the beginning of their musical journey and starting out in the industry. I think drawing this distinction and making sure you allow time to work on your business, even though you might not want to do it. I mean, I'm constantly wrestling with it. At the moment, I've got into a good position whereby the first thing I do in the morning is music. Because if I end up doing business or admin stuff all day, I tend to get very frustrated because I'm a composer and a producer, so I should be making music. So I tend to spend the mornings doing music, and then I'll have a sort of cut off about 3-4 o'clock when I can't hear what I'm doing anymore, and then I'm making tweaks, which is actually making things worse rather than better. Pack it all up and then sort of do some admin stuff. But as well, one thing I will say on sort of like efficiency and time saving and that kind of thing is, one thing I have found to be invaluable on this subject is scheduling, and not like doing a to-do list, but scheduling what you're doing on what day. So when I arrive at a studio in the morning, I don't need to think about what I'm doing. It's all in the calendar because I've spent a bit of time. So between now and Christmas, in order for me to be able to finish my mixes and get them ready for release in January, I've worked backwards, and I know exactly what I have to do every single day leading up to Christmas. So between now and Christmas, I don't have to think about what I'm doing because it's all planned out and scheduled. So that, I can't speak highly enough of it. I've known about it for a long time, but I only tend to do it when I get really busy. But I think that's a really, really important part. So those sorts of things, working on your business, setting up templates to save time, looking at marketing, or just a bit of self-promotion or enthusiastically sharing what you're doing, is kind of an important part of making sure that you're not just doing music as a hobby, but you also have the opportunity to do it professionally, to have clients, to have people that will pay for it, because there are people out there who will pay you for your services, but if they don't know who you are, then that's not going to happen. So you have to kind of create those relationships. And what I will also say is, I've been very guilty in the past of just having a website and hoping that they will come to me. But I think actually one has to have a very proactive approach to doing it, because whilst I do get inquiries through my website, I think some of the best opportunities that have arisen for me have been ones that I've actively gone out and looked for. And yes, probably only 1 in 50 actually come off, or maybe even less, 1 in 100. But it's a necessary process, and when that one thing does come off, it can be a bit of a game changer. So there you go. A couple of other comments just coming in. What's the most successful marketing focus for Larp music you found? Social media, cold call, word of mouth, ads? Honestly, I think the most of the stuff that comes through is word of mouth. I think there's if you're not familiar with Seth Godin has written a book about This Is Marketing, and he actually runs a freelancers workshop. And what I came out of that with is with the understanding that as a freelancer, you live and die by word of mouth. It's the most important thing. So this is a good point, Brad, is like getting testimonials for, when you've done finished jobs and things like that is really, really important. But, I've had people hire me, and I'm not even convinced they've ever listened to my work. I think they've asked someone and said, do you know composer? And they go, oh, yeah, Jim is a composer. And then they've come to me, and I've never actually asked the question if they've listened to it, but I'm convinced that a lot of them have never even listened to what I've done. They've just sort of, because someone's recommended me. So I think word of mouth is the big one. But then I've also, Brad, you've got that kind of chicken and egg. So it's like, if you've never worked for anyone, you can't get the word of mouth. So how do they sort of hear you? But yeah, the one thing I will say about social media is I think what's important is to recognize what value it brings you and how much time it takes, because it does take a long. My experience is like, doing social media takes a long time. Everyone says, oh no, you just whack up a post. It's like, no, it's not. You get the content, you make it look good, you write a bit of a description, you come up with your tags and your keywords, and then you schedule it. It's like, it's not that quick. It takes quite a lot of time, but you've also got to look at, okay, what's the value that comes out of it? And as you're maybe intimating there, Brad, is like, there are other mediums which are possibly more effective, and certainly face-to-face, meeting people. Cold call, I've tried it, but I hate it. I hate it because you always run into a gatekeeper who won't let you talk to the person you want to talk to. And I just sort of tune out. Oh, look, everyone, it's Todd Baker at the window. Where is he? Over there. But yeah. What's Duddy Brown saying? Agreed. Music in the mornings, business in the evening. It's all about the reverse mentality. Party in the front, business in the back. Yes, Duddy. So, Bryce, you say about motivational quotes. I mean, if there's a man who just like literally opens his mouth and coins insanely motivational and awesome quotes, it's Duddy Brown. All about the reverse mullet mentality. Party in the front, business in the back. Nice. Jerry Banks, do you want to sit down with a major label to present your project? Visit our website now. Oh, Jerry. Oh, Jerry, are you spamming me, Jerry, or is this real? What is my project, Jerry? Who knows? Is it viable for a major label? Jerry, get in touch. Tell us more about your projects in the chat. Would love to hear how that isn't spam. At Dustin Brown, Duddy Brown. Oh no, you are Dustin Brown. Interesting. Oh, is that your real name, Duddy? Dustin Brown. OMG. Jerry, yeah, everyone's like, come on, Jerry Banks. Cool. I'm gonna kind of wrap up there, unless Jerry Banks jumps on in a minute with some like golden opportunity, offering me like a 500 grand advance to sit down and have a conversation about my major label project. But if not, even Santiago Piqueras, hola, oh Jerry, you've put a cat amongst the pigeons here. Jerry didn't get the memo. Ollie Barton saying, "This is great." Does that mean I always think with a YouTube video, as soon as you get people hating on it, that's a sort of sign of success? Does that mean that these lives are sort of like doing okay when you get people spamming you in the comments section? Bryce Kagan saying, yeah, or a timeshare. Probably a bit of both. A musical timeshare, a timeshare in a studio. That's what Jerry Brown's chatting about. Cool. Okay, guys. Well, thank you so much to everyone for getting involved in this conversation. I think it's a valuable one to have, and for anybody who's doing music professionally or is in the process of joining that industry, defining the difference between working on your business and for your business, and making time to work on your business as well as for your business is really important. So yeah, thanks for everyone for getting involved with this. Again, if you're new to the channel, please do hit that subscribe button and ring my bell really hard so that every time I post a new video, you find out first. I generally post videos on Thursday, and I'm going to start from next week doing a live every Monday. So yeah, it'd be great to have you stop by. Thanks for stopping by, San Diego. Yeah, I'm not going to do one tomorrow night because I'm going to have a Friday off. So see you on Monday.